Life is precious. Sometimes when this is a month where it all began and the battle for my husband's life began, war spiritually began. And I start to reflect on this journey and how suffering or watching a loved one suffer, feeling the suffering due to the connection that you have as a married couple, right? How it changed me tremendously in a good way, I would say. It brought me closer to God because God is someone that wants to be in the details of your life. He wants to be up close and personal. He wants those regular conversations. And in my journey and that battle that I did with my husband for 6 months every day, it exhausted me. But at the same time, it strengthened me. I know that probably doesn't make much sense. And it still doesn't make sense to me. But I know that you can draw strength from God spiritually through your connection with Him, where you're spiritually high, but physically you're exhausted, right? And that's how I was. And when it was all over and my husband went home to be with the Lord, even though I thought through my communications with God and what He said He's coming home. So that wasn't even a question or a thought to me because He was coming home, and I meant my home or our home. I didn't think home to the Lord, and God knew that. But He wanted me to stand in a specific way to expose a new side of Him to me. And I had to change for that. And now being as a widow, it's ever changing. Life is ever changing. You know, in the first year, talk about the first year of widowdom, you're right? It for a widow, it is a constant struggle. You know, especially like if you have kids and stuff like that, it is a constant struggle. And it's not always verbalized of that struggle because you have to navigate through, all right, I don't want to be here, one. Then two, what do I do now? And it depends on how you became a widow and how you navigate through that. Sometimes people die suddenly. That's horrific, you know? And then people die through times of suffering, which is still horrific, you know? And the result is the same. They pass away, and we need to navigate through life. And we have to establish a new normal when our minds and our bodies, our routines is already set in a certain habit. And habits, to establish a new habit, it takes at least 21 days. But if you have to do multiple habits, it's going to take some time, right? But even in the midst, for me, God was still in the midst of the details. And because He taught me how to keep Him present, even in the midst of suffering, He reminded me I'm still present, even in the midst of your struggle, even in the midst of your adjustment, even in the midst of you trying to figure out a new normal, trying to balance finances, because now I'm missing a whole paycheck. But one thing that the Bible says is that He encourages others, and He takes care of the widow and the fatherless. And that's what I have experienced. We have not experienced any lack. And I am so grateful and humbled by that. And in the first year, it's like, all right, I need to know how to do simple things around the house that I always gave to my husband. I need to know how to take care of certain bills that I didn't have to think about, right? I have to figure out how to fix things that my husband normally fixed. Everything else I can do, but those things that a man does, I didn't want to do it. I've been spoiled. My husband spoiled me. He wasn't, I didn't have a perfect marriage. I know who does when you think about it. But the longer that you've been together, you learn how to adjust. We always look for someone that is compatible, right? And I've just realized that I don't always want someone that's compatible. My husband wasn't necessarily compatible. He was a challenge. And I was a challenge to him because we were opposites. Two completely different type of people. Different ways of handling things, different ways of living life, different ways of approaching situations and thinking. But one thing I realized in that was the two opposites make a whole. And therefore, when I was weak, he was strong. When he was weak, I was strong. And now there's that void. Okay, I'm weak. And now I just lean on God. Because the word says when you feel weak, you are actually strong. When I'm physically weak, I'm mentally weak. If I'm spiritually strong, I will make it through. If I'm constantly connected to God, He will provide a way. He will sustain me. He will provide for me. He will comfort me when I'm laying on the couch or laying in my bed and tears are just rolling down my face. He is always there. And I love Him even more for it. And sometimes some people don't always cling to God in that sense. But when you do, you start to look at life differently. You start to cherish the things that you have, the people that's around you, because they could be gone in a second. Stop worrying about things that just divides you. It's not worth it. Make good memories. Cherish life. Explore lands. Create happy moments. Spend time with your loved ones. And most of all, if you don't have a will, I'm going to encourage you. Make sure you have a will. Make sure you have your ducks in order, because you never know. You may be here today, but when you leave your house, you may not come back. And what about your loved ones that's there? What is he going to do? What is she going to do when you're gone? I am grateful that my husband had a will. He laid things out. I found out stuff that I didn't even know that he made me a beneficiary of. It is great to have a life plan. And if you don't have a life plan, you need to go and get one. There's this great app or, software called Wheel Maker. And it gives you it lines it all out for you. And all you have to do is get it notarized and have witnesses. And it is honored by the courts. And you need to have different things in place. It doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter what you have obtained. But it's just giving your loved ones who remained a guideline. Establishing a guideline. Because, once again, life is precious. And you got to cherish it all. Yeah?